We bought what seemed a fabulous thing, largely because of the creek and the river gums and what I could see down here. Very quickly we realised that, because when we first came here it was impassable. Dog rose, ash, olive, it was a complete mess. This is what we started with, and the entire creek, this was the dominant species down here, was vast clumps of dog rose. And as you can see, it's a pretty ferocious kind of a plant. It grows into these strands that are 12 or 15 feet long, and they have significant spikes on them. So it's quite a job, but one cut at a time, and they are almost all gone. I came down here right to this, where we are at the moment, and tried to walk in down the creek and could go no more than 4 or 5 metres because the ash trees prevented me. So Tess and I realised very quickly that we couldn't live on a property with this weed-infested drain at the bottom of the yard. So we did a little bit of research and learned about cutting and painting and what have you, but we learned very quickly that there are a lot of resources and a lot of support available around here and in the community. And we made a couple of very important connections, and one of them was the NRM, Natural Resource Management Board, Landscapes SA as it is now. And Wollonga Creek is recognised as being on their radar, and we developed a work plan with them. And the basic deal was, you clear the stuff out and we'll provide you with a bunch of plants every year, so 750, 800 plants a year, and we did 6 or 7 years of that according to a work plan. And the other connection we made was with Trees for Life. So we got into this annual cycle of clearing, the NRM would provide the plants, and Trees for Life and our mates would come in and we'd start planting. And over time, you start to see that what was a weedy jungle becomes a thing of beauty and a great joy for the owners. You know, it's taken us 15 years to clear the creek. When you're clearing dog rose, you're basically cutting a cane at a time, cut, paint, and these are big clumps. So we would just go through methodically, and a weekend might remove 1 or 2 clumps, and that's it. When you've cleared, you plant. When you've planted, you need to maintain. So we've tended to water things for 1 year to get them through. And the other great thing that's happened down here is that this is the foundation site for what's become Biodiversity McLaren Vale. And so that's conceived as a collaboration between community, represented by people like myself and Friends of Wollonga Basin. This is a group which has really taken off, and we're working on the 3 principal creek lines of the Wollonga Basin, and once a month on a Sunday morning for 2 hours we put a bunch of volunteers into a creek line, and we either cut down weeds or we plant things during winter or we maintain them. And we're getting 50, 60, 70, 100 people turning up on a Sunday morning, and it's a real group effort, great energy in this group, and it's really making it all kind of started right here. Well, I think it's fantastic. It's one of the greatest things I've ever done, both for our own satisfaction and for the property. There are clear benefits in my view to having, this is an insectarium down here, and there are beneficial insects living down here. We have bats, so there's all sorts of wildlife has come to what was a monoculture, both in terms of what was planted down here and what was living down here. So we've gone from foxes and olives to this biodiverse stretch, which is, from my point of view, is great for the vineyard. So there's a couple of things here. One, it's very hard to see what's not here anymore. So we've probably taken 1,000 cubic metres of dog rose alone out of this creek, I reckon. And the other thing to say is that everything down here, except for the larger eucalypts, is stuff that we've planted. So the environment has been completely transformed, and there's a whole range of plants you can see down here. Acacia echinacea, there's bursarias, there's myoporum, the sticky bubialas, there's the golden wattles, alocasurinas. As the creek is cleared, the creek bank needs to be stabilised, and so that's where these sedges come in. And so there were a small batch of cyperus, this is an original, and it's now spreading right along the creek. And the other plant we've introduced down here is, and there's a couple of them, but this is a carex, big clumps. And you can see when you come down here that it really likes this environment. So the plan is that we'll just let this spread both ways up and down the creek, and it serves multiple functions down here of cleaning the water and keeping the creek bank intact as it should be. Having cut down, because this area through here was completely filled with mature ash trees, 15, 20 feet tall. But after they've been cut, they leave a seed load, and this is what happens, they all sprout. So sort of 3 years after cutting the trees down, and you can see that these banks are clear because this is where we've been cutting, we'll just come through and remove all of these juveniles, and hopefully that will be the job done on the ash trees. So one of the things I've learned about since we've been down here is microbats, and they are tiny bats. They're the size of a mouse. There's 7 species of them are native to this region, and they all live down here in this creek because we put what they call anabat recorders down here that pick up their frequencies as they're flying around, and each bat has its own signature frequency. So So by recording what's going on down here at night, you can actually determine what's happening. So as I say, there's 7 species of bats down here, and to encourage them we've been erecting bat boxes. The Wildlife for Wine program's been providing them, and so there's a number of bat boxes along the creek here, attached high up in trees with a clear opening for the bats to get in, and the hope is that they will start to nest and to take up residence down here in these little bat boxes. So this is our last stand of mature ash trees, and this growth used to extend for hundreds of metres in either direction, and you can see the scale of them. They are mature and they just spread like weeds. So a couple of weeks, these are all about to be removed, and it will be goodbye ash trees from Sometimes Creek. Everyone should learn this trick. If you see a baby olive, grab it very close to the ground and pull, and that's the end of that one. So I think if you're someone who's looking at buying a property and it's got a creek like this, then I would encourage you to get into it. It is a lot of work, it does take time. You know, I jokingly say it's a life's work, but I think it is. And the important thing is there is a lot of support around here. Everything that we're doing is a continuum of what's gone before, and through the Hills and Fleurieu Landscape Board, through Trees for Life, through Biodiversity McLaren Vale, there are a huge pool of knowledge and a very large range of resources available so that you might have a creek line that is something like this one, which, as I said before, is truly a thing of great joy for us.